So this video is going to be helping you to fill out the section in your flipbook. That is section number 1. So this is your flipbook titled Unit 2 Polynomials. And I thought it'd be a good idea before we actually got into solving polynomials or talking about polynomials. I thought it'd be a good idea to define some words. And some of these words you've heard probably. In fact, all of these words you've heard, but let's give them some specific definitions, because I still run into students who I make the assumption that they know what I'm talking about or know what we're talking about in class when we hear a certain word, and they're just in the dark. They don't know what that means, and so that makes everything that we're talking about much more difficult to understand. So this is section number 1 in your flipbook, top flat. You'll see it's just basically a whole bunch of squares, just a table. And the first word we're going to talk about is this word variable. A variable is a symbol for a number we don't know yet. You may have to pause the video to write the lines to keep up with me, because I'm going to move on. But get that definition written and then we'll continue. Let's take some examples of that. And I have some students who struggle with this. What is a variable? And you see X's and Y's and Z's and A's and B's. And just think of it as it's a placeholder for a number that we haven't really figured out yet. Or it's a placeholder for what could be a whole bunch of different number values. And here's an example of that. You've seen this kind of equation before. This is a linear equation. Y equals 3x minus 2. And in this particular equation, we have two variables. We have the variable y and we have the variable x. Now I want you to be careful. The variable is not 3x. The variable is x. In this equation, we just happen to be multiplying that variable times 3. But the variables here are x and y. Those are symbols for numbers that we don't know yet. Let's take a look at definition number 2. The word is term. A term is either a single number or variable, or numbers and variables that are multiplied together. So you'll hear in this unit we're talking about terms in an equation or an expression. I want to be clear what a term is. So here's some examples of a term. The number 2 could be a term. There is a single number or variable, so 2 possibly could be a term in an expression or equation. Also x, we know x is a variable. It could also just be a term. We could say, you know what, we could put a coefficient there. Let's say 6x, that's a term. Notice the term is numbers and variables multiplied together. Well, this is a number and a variable multiplied together. -3, let's do this, -3t. That's a term, number and a variable multiplied together. We could also get really complex. How about this? We could say 4x y squared z to the 3rd power. Let's make that z a little bit clearer. I put a line in my z's. I'm going to not do that this time. Let's try z cubed. That is a very long term, but look, there's no adding or subtracting. It's a whole bunch of either numbers or variables all multiplied together. This is 4 times x times y squared times z cubed. That itself is just one term. Let's go on next word. Next word, third word, is coefficient. You'll hear that word a lot. What is a coefficient? It's a number used for multiplying a variable. It's a number used for multiplying a variable. In fact, we've already used a few coefficients now. Take a look at the top. This 3x, 3 times x, 3 is a coefficient of x. 6 is a coefficient of x. -3 is the coefficient of t. 4 is the coefficient of x times y squared times z cubed. So if we want to write some examples here, I'll use some of those same ones. We'll put 6x. Let's write this down, -3t. And we'll write this crazy one again, 4 times x times y squared times z cubed. And let's go ahead and underline our coefficients. 6 is the coefficient on x. Negative 3 is the coefficient on t. And 4 is the coefficient on that crazy group of variables. So that is what a coefficient is. Next definition. An expression. What is an expression? Well, an expression is just a group of terms separated by plus and minus signs. Now notice, nowhere in this definition are we talking about an equals sign. There's no equals in there. It's just a group of terms separated by addition or subtraction. So here's a possible expression, x plus 2. That qualifies as an expression. Here's another expression. We'll be seeing a lot of this in this semester. X squared plus 6x plus 9. This is a quadratic equation actually, but in this case it's an expression. Sorry, I should have said quadratic expression. These are expressions. X plus 2 is an expression. X squared plus 6x plus 9 is an expression. It is just a group of terms. All right, let's go to the next one. Now we'll get into stuff we're covering in this unit. A monomial. Monomial. Let's underline something here. Mono. I don't know if you've ever been to Disneyland, but if you have, you might have ridden the monorail. Monorail, mono means one. That means that particular ride only has one rail. So mono means one. And what's nice about that is a monomial is an expression with exactly one term. So let's go ahead and underline that. Mono means one. Only has one term. So here's a monomial. Already seen it a bunch of times. 6x. In fact, this 2, monomial, x is monomial, 6x, all of these terms are monomial because it's just an expression with exactly one term. Notice again, no equal sign. That's why we call it an expression. Next one, binomial. Now we have the word bi. Bi means two. Easiest thing to remember on that is bicycle. A bicycle has two wheels. So binomial, an expression with exactly two terms. So now we have to write things with two terms. We'll take a look above. X plus 2, that's a binomial. So let's write some binomials. I'll just write one similar to that. How about this one? We'll just do 6x plus 3. Here's a good example of a binomial. It's an expression with 1, 2 terms added or subtracted. Next definition is trinomial. Tri meaning 3. Don't know if you had this when you were a kid, but my kids learned how to ride a tricycle before they learned how to ride a bicycle. A tricycle is a lot easier because it has 3 wheels. A trinomial is an expression with exactly 3 terms. We already have written a trinomial. If you look up here, x squared plus 6x plus 9. That is a trinomial. Let's go ahead and write that down here. 6x squared plus, oops, I didn't have a 6 there. Let's get rid of that, so just keep it looking like the other one. It's x squared plus 6x plus 9. There's an example of a trinomial, an expression with 3 terms. We're almost done. Now we get to this word polynomial. And poly means many. Or you can even think of it as more than one. Poly, more than one. So a polynomial is just an expression with 2 or more terms. That means every binomial is a polynomial. Every trinomial is a polynomial. And you got polynomials can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 100 terms, as many as you want. It just can't have one. So polynomial, 2 or more terms. How about an example of that? Let's write something a little bit more crazy here. We'll write 4x cubed minus x squared plus 6x plus 9. You can see now that has 4 terms, so it's not a trinomial. not a binomial, not a monomial, but it does count as a polynomial because it has 2 or more terms. I think we got 1 or 2 more to go. I think maybe this is the last one. Yep, it is. Equation. What is an equation? An equation is a math sentence that says 2 things are equal. And I want you to underline this word equal. As soon as you write a math sentence and it has an equal sign in it, you've turned it into an equation. Now take a look at everything we've done so far. Nothing has an equal sign. These are all expressions. Everything above is expressions. Once we put an equal sign in it, now it becomes an equation. So try to get that straight, class. A lot of students and teachers, including me, want to say this is an equation. It is not. This is an expression. 4x cubed minus x squared plus 6x plus 9. An equation will always have an equal sign. Here are some examples. It can be something simple like 6 equals 3x. That is an equation because it has an equal sign. And let's do another one, a little more complicated. Y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now we've taken this trinomial expression, which is above, and turned that into an equation with a trinomial. And again, we know it's an equation because it has an equal sign. If you want to remember this, just think of this word, equal. Look, equal is almost in the word. All you do is add an L to it and you have E-Q-U-A-L, equal. So there are important definitions to help you understand the things that we'll be discussing in this unit.